Did you know we can actually wake up our brains to create new connections, new learning, and new possibilities at any age to overcome pain or disability and achieve new levels of performance? The brain can essentially change itself on demand when you give it the right conditions. The woman at the forefront of this cutting-edge science and practice is Anat Baniel, founder of the Anat Baniel Method NeuroMovement and author of 2 highly acclaimed books, Into Life Neuromovement for Lifelong Vitality and Kids Beyond Limits. Whether you have a child with special needs or you're an adult that is looking to have more vitality, clearer thinking, overcome pain, or mental limitations, Anat Baniel's 9 Essentials can help train the brain to overcome almost any obstacle. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so what is the Anat Baniel NeuroMovement? Okay, that's a mouthful,
Yes,
but
it
it's
is.
really interesting. As soon as I met you, I was like, okay, this is really significant. What is it?
Well, it is taking advantage of the brain's ability to change throughout life and to change in a positive direction, not just a negative direction, which we are accustomed to, and utilizing movement is the primary mechanism of communicating with the brain and getting it to actually start forming new connections. So, for anyone who wants to wake up their brain and do better physically or cognitively or emotionally.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about neuroplasticity, because I've heard about that. So what is it, how does it work, and how does it work inside your method?
Okay. So neuroplasticity is basically means the changeability of the brain. So our brains actually change all the time in response to our experiences. And it was Dr. Michael Merzenich in the 80s that did the research, to his surprise, discovering that the brain actually can change throughout life.
Right, so it doesn't just get hard towards the end of life and not change any longer. So it's actually adaptable all the time, no matter what age you have.
Yes, I mean, the brain can get lazier, so to speak, in changing, but that can be reversed.
Okay.
So brain plasticity, and a huge amount of research is done in that field now for the last 20, 25 years, is looking what can change and what drives change and what drives positive change. Because most people who know the term brain plasticity assume that the change is automatically positive, but actually the change that we've seen in our culture is the negative one through the aging process.
Right, so you're basically, the more you practice something negative, the more your brain does that.
It's also the quality with which the brain works. So we can think of our heart is working better or not as well, our skin, our eyes, our ears. Same holds true for the brain. The brain has a job to do, and it can do it better or not as well.
Okay, so let's talk then about something you call the 9 Essentials. So how can they tap into the brain's potential, and what are the 9 Essentials in the first place?
Okay, so to talk about the 9 Essentials, I have to just say a few things before. The way the brain creates new connections and grows and forms itself and forms patterns is through a process of differentiation, what's called differentiation. And then integration, that it gets more and more options how to, for instance, control your fingers, and then integrate it into a specific action, like playing the piano or holding a cup or anything like that. And the brain is an information system. So when we try to improve stuff about ourselves, including movement, which is controlled by the brain, we tend to use what we know from our experience with mechanical things. So if I push this very light, it won't move. I push it harder, it will move. It doesn't work like that in the brain. It's very different. And the source of information in the brain is not just stimulation, but it's the perception of differences. Actually, if I can see the difference between dark blue and light blue, they exist for me, and I know those distinctions are there. So to get a brain to wake up, to get a brain to be able to figure something out that it has never figured out or has lost, like in stroke or in an accident, we really want that brain to be really, really good at perceiving differences. So this is really what my method does. And the 9 Essentials are basically 9 conditions or ways to get the brain to do that. So for example, reducing the force. When you reduce the intensity of like how you move your muscles or the loudness of your voice or the light around you, you can actually perceive finer changes. And the finer the changes you perceive, the smarter you get, actually, literally smarter. We work a lot with children that become good students where they were considered like behind. We work with athletes that want to achieve new levels, or musicians that have pain due to performance. And when we don't give them the solution, but we give them the process where the information floods their brain, and spontaneously they get better.
Okay, so what this ultimately means is you've figured out the key distinctions then on how to accelerate the process and make these changes much more faster and know what they are.
It's not just accelerate, which it is. It's a huge thing how much it accelerates upon itself, but it's also upgrade the quality with which the brain is able to perceive. So you get a better, what Mike Merznik said about my work is that it helps people get a better, stronger brain. And when you have a better, stronger brain, guess what? Everything the brain's supposed to do gets better.
Okay, great. Now, this is something that you have in the information I have, which is the CDC in 2016. So it's a very recent study reported 1 in 68 kids identified with an autism spectrum disorder. So why is neuromovement essential in giving these children a chance? Because we know we've been medicating them, or a lot of people just don't know what to do with an autistic child or someone who's on the edge, right?
Yeah. Well, my experience with children on the spectrum is that their brains, I don't know the cause of it. There's a lot of conversation about that, but I know that they are not very good at perceiving differences. Actually, their world is to a great extent a blur. So people assume that they see what we see, that they hear what we hear, that they can make sense of the world the way we make sense of the world, and they are not because they're not smart. It's because something underlying that system is interfering metabolically or however it happens. The amazing thing is that through the 9 essentials and through movement is very powerful in impacting, very important. The brain is very busy with movement all the time. That we get those kids to actually come out of the what I call the soup, the blur. It's called the signal to noise ratio. You get their brain to get sharper and sharper, and sometimes it's miraculous, like they start saying words all of a sudden they've never said words, things like that. And many of them really do a whole lot better when we work with them.
It's great. Now, here's the other thing that I think is interesting for someone watching this right now saying, okay, well, will this work for me? So this is work with autistic babies, for example, or a baby with cerebral palsy, or a world-class athlete, a CEO, a musician. Why is it that this works for virtually anyone?
Well, one thing is it's snake oil.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We got a silver bullet and a magic button.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you believe in unicorns? No, but anyway, what is it?
Okay, so, we all have brains, and we all need, the brain is the CEO of us, basically. Puts order in the disorder, makes sense out of the nonsense for us, allows us to function, right?
Yep.
And create a reality. So and the brain does not change the principles by which it works. So it's really a very, very potent way to step into people's lives and upgrade the quality of their life by helping the brain work better. So again, stroke, when somebody lost function, has to create a whole new set of connections and possibilities to someone who's already very high performing. And it's not easy to get better when you're very, very high level performance. You can still communicate with that brain and get it to do its own next best self.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
It's very exciting. So let's talk about the aging process, how your process can be used to combat it, or the notion of age reversal.
Yes.
So how can your system help with that?
Well, there is really interesting research done by Merznik and a team of people on rats, not on humans, but they took them close to the time that they're supposed to die, and they can't do the physical stuff, and they can't do the maze, so it's cognitive, right? The rat cognitive, and they gave them a task that was really a pure task of differentiation, of perceiving differences in order to get food. Basically, if I remember correctly, through the auditory system. So it's not the muscles, and it's not whatever, and all of the markers. They had a bunch of aging markers. All of them reversed, and not only that, their life expectancy increased in a very significant way. So when you get the brain, as we age, tends to just do what it already knows over and over again. So what happens, it's not active in that process of the creating the new, right, the new connections. And so the differentiation aspect of the brain gets lazy and dull, and we lose connections actually. When you reverse the underlying process and you wake up the differentiation process in the brain, you actually reverse a lot of the aging. So it's really, it's very often, you know, I do this work now for quite a few years, and I'm always stunned with the speed and the intensity of the improvement. With the people up, my father, I'd love to talk about my father. He trained with me. By the way, I've trained over 500 practitioners that are doing the same thing.
Wow.
And they're getting really wonderful results. But my father started with me in his 70s. He took my training program. It's a few years training program. He's now 98. He walks every day a couple times for an hour, and he is in charge of a startup, of an invention. He's a scientist that he created 4 years ago.
Unbelievable.
So I told him just that I believe he's never going to die.
That's great. That's so great. 98-year-old
Like those rats.
working. All right. So,
Yeah.
well, at this point, everyone should be excited to learn more about you. And I know you have a summit you're going to give away, which is at anatbanielmethod.com/summit. So what is that? What are you giving
Actually,
away?
it's an offer that came from a summit. It's first of all, free membership in a program we call NeuroMovement for the busy person.
Oh, nice.
And it's 40 short 5-minute movement lessons that I call it the brain pops.
Nice.
You know, for shoulders, for hips, for this, for breathing better, for focusing better, and people can do it like off their computer or device. I recommend once or twice a day. It's not a long time. Then I give 2 slightly longer movement lessons that are from my book, but it's in a video form for Moving to Life. And then I give a Q&A that I did together with Dr. Michael Merzenich in my center, where people ask questions and we just answered him from his point of view.
All the things that people want to know.
And I don't know if all of them, but
okay,
some of
but
them.
a lot of them. Okay,
Yes,
good.
okay.
You're a very precise thinker. I know that about you.
Yeah, I guess I am.
Okay, very good.
Well, wonderful.
Well, who wouldn't want? I know you want some brain pops right now. So the place to go get them is at anatbanielmethod.com/summit. Go there. You'll get all of this for free access to a membership site, and learn how to use your tools and resources.
Thank you. Such a pleasure being with
You
you.
were great.
You have a very good active brain.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So go get some brain pops for yourself right now. Thank you so much for watching, and head on over and get these gifts from Anat.